Good morning, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion, and here we are in Phoenix, Arizona, but we are going to go on a little field trip today. Today I want to go do some filming locations for 1985's Murphy's Romance, starring James Garner and Sally Field. We're going to go to, in the movie, it's Eunice, but in reality, it's Florence, Arizona. It's about an hour and a half from here. I think this will be a great vlog because it's a pretty great movie. The cinematographer was actually nominated for an Academy Award, as well as James Garner. He did not win, but he did say he was very shocked that he was nominated for this movie because he said he had never really been treated as a real actor. And he said, up until this point, people had always just said, oh, that's just Jim being Jim and everything. But he said, it's not true. He said, I have to work hard to not look like I'm acting. It's hard to come off the way I do on screen. So this was the first time that he was acknowledged for his acting ability in any kind of professional situation. And he said this was a great experience. He loved filming this movie. He loved working with this director. He loved the writers. These were basically the writers, the director, and Sally Field all made Norma Rae together. So they were bringing James Garner in to help them make this movie. And we're gonna go to basically the 2-block stretch of Main Street where they filmed a big chunk of this. We'll hit it scene by scene. So Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. And Jaws loved having space to roam around and enjoy himself. Some very nice desert flowers out here at my friend's place. So we're gonna leave Jaw here and we're gonna go hit the road. And I think we're gonna leave you here too. All right, we're definitely going the right way. We're about 30 minutes away now. All right, we've made our way to Florence, or in the movie Eunice, whichever. All right, my friends, we are on Main Street. Now, first let me tell you that the house that Sally Field in the movie is 33, and we find out the very, spoiler alert, I know it was made in 1985, but the very last line of the movie, James Garner is holding back, Murphy is holding back his age in the last line of the movie. He tells her that he's 60. When they filmed this, he was actually 57, but a lot of the movie takes place out on the farm that Sally Field lives at. Basically the story is that she's moving here with her son, who is Corey Haim, and she's just divorced her lazy, philandering husband and is starting out on their own here. They have a dilapidated house and ranch, and she's a horse trainer. So that was actually built for the movie. The ranch, the house, the barn, all of that stuff was made specifically for the movie. So the first place that we can actually vlog is right here when she's new in town and she's putting those flyers on all of the car windows. Well, our first shot is right here. Sally Field is working her way car to car up this side, putting a flyer in every single window. And right here where this car is parked is where Murphy's 1927 Studebaker is parked. The way we know that is because where this tree is, the beginning of the movie, there's actually a meter, parking meter, and you can see her putting the flyer in, and right this exact angle, he comes walking out and he says, hey lady, you're covering up my cause. And on his windshield he has a sticker that says Reforest America, and she's put her flyer on top of it. So she comes walking up and says, do you mind if I put this up? And he says, do you mind if I read it? So she walks over here, hands it to him right here, and he's reading, and he says, I'm all for free enterprise, go ahead and post it. So she walks in the doors. The doors are different, but all this glass, that's the way it was in the movie, and this was Murphy's Drugstore. And she comes over here, and right here is where she, from the inside, is posting up her ad. And I was gonna hope to match it up with the original door. There was a hinge that you can match up where she's posting it, but of course the door is different. So then we see her inside Murphy's Drugstore. This is where they filmed a Murphy's Drugstore. The counter is supposedly here in town at the general store. We'll see if we can find that. But inside here is where she meets James Garner, Murphy Jones. he runs the drugstore, and she comes in asking to get a Coke. Now the reason that she does that is because at the time Columbia Pictures made this movie and they were co-owned by Coca-Cola. So it was in the contract that they had to do 8 lines of dialogue about Coca-Cola and show Coca-Cola products throughout the movie. So that's why she asked for the drink at the soda fountain, and he says that he puts the lemon in the Coca-Cola and the lemon comes right from his tree. He also tells her there, "You don't have to tip me because I own the place," and she says, "I wasn't going to." So that would have been the inside of Murphy's Drugstore. We see it throughout the movie. We see it actually towards the end. I'll come back and show you the scene when we get to it. So in the background of the shot when Sally Field's putting the flyers down, you can see right on this place it said Mexican Market or Mexican Foods. Business has changed a little bit since then. But this is where throughout the entire movie his car is parked. It's now an insurance agency for the town, as you can probably tell by seeing Flo in the window here. So this is Murphy's Drugstore in the movie, and they had a light up on the side up here that said drugs. Now let me show you something interesting on the side. So it's kind of funny to see it now because that wasn't on the side at the time of filming, where it says drink Coca-Cola, delicious, refreshing. Would have fit the movie, wouldn't it? So here you can see this fantastic mural dedicated to the town of Florence, but this was also part of a filming location. Even though it's not here anymore, this is where the theater was. The Spur Theater. We see a big kind of fade down of the theater right here, and then the camera ends up walking along here kind of the same way that we are, and we follow some people walking down this direction, and then right when we get to here, this door comes flying open and Sally Field and Corey Haim come walking out of here. This was the Chuck Nibble Cafe. As they walk along here, there was a sign that said Chuck Nibble Cafe, and you can see this window that they pass. Now what's interesting to me is that they end up stopping right here, and right here, this building wasn't here at the time. It's actually, it looks like an alleyway. They stop here, and Corey Haim asks if he can have some money to go get ice cream. So she reaches in and starts pulling money out, and he says, "Mom, that's enough, that's enough." And he takes the money and he goes across the street. Not really across the street, because where they filmed was about a block away down the street, but she's standing right here with a bunch of open area behind there, and now there's a full building. I'll back up and show you what's here, but you can match it up because as he walks away, she keeps pacing past the open space, and then you see her arm and everything with this brick in the background. She's standing right here. So for reference, we just walked from down here at the theater, and she came walking out of this door right here, and this is where the open space is. They literally built this building right into that open space, and then Murphy's Drugstore is right there. So as we stand where Murphy's Drugstore is, the next part that we see, Sally Field is standing over here at this store. I'll match that up. And the ice cream factory is actually right over here where this white car is. So right here where this open plot of land is right where the building was that Corey Haim, we see him walking in front of. The reason I know that is because if you look on Google Street View, the building's still here. So I was not expecting for it not to be here. But he walks right past it, and then in this other vacant section right here was the ice cream factory that he goes into to get his and his mother's ice cream. So both of those locations are gone now. So while he's getting the ice cream over there, you think that she's right across the street, but she's actually catty corner, and she's standing right here, Sally Field standing right here looking in the window at the mannequin with the dress and the hat, and then she starts walking towards us and ends up walking across the street, and we see that that is all still the same. It was called Gibby's back then. It was like an eatery and a saloon. Now it's the Blue Adobe, but we see her walk right through the middle of the street right there. So she ends up running into the ice cream parlor just as he's getting his ice cream and says, "Make that two," and he had already ordered one for her. So Corey Haim and Sally Field start walking right on this sidewalk behind us, and that's where they end up seeing Murphy performing. So they start walking along this way, kind of arm in arm, or basically she's got her arm around him because all they have is each other. And they get up here, and this is how I could match it up. This white tiling and the red dividing, you see that in the movie. So there's actually a woman standing right here as they pass by. That door was closed at the time, but this one was the open door. And inside there is where you see Murphy playing violin with some of the locals. And they stop and they stand here and watch for a little while. And then they turn around. And at the time there was a bench right here. And there are two guys sitting on the bench. And one of them stands up and says, "Ma'am, would you like to sit down?" So they end up sitting down right there. You can see that kind of stuff in the background. They're sitting down, and when Murphy's done playing, he comes out here and sits on the bench that's right here with them, starts asking Corey Haim about himself, and his name in the movie is Jake Moriarty, so he's talking to him, getting to know him, and then after a while of sitting here talking, he looks up and looks back inside and he says, "Oh, it looks like they're all back from the bathroom, got to do another set." And he gets up and walks back into play. And James Garner did not know how to play violin, at least not for this movie, because if you watch his hands and you watch where the notes are playing, they definitely don't match up, but he ends up going right back inside. Now what's interesting is James Garner does such a great job, and like I said, he's nominated for an Academy Award for this movie, though he didn't win. They didn't originally want him. They originally wanted Paul Newman because Sally Field had just worked with Paul Newman, but Paul passed on the project. I think they offered it to him a couple of times and he passed on it. And then the studio insisted on Marlon Brando, and Marlon Brando hadn't made a movie for almost 5 years at that point. Sally Field was producing this movie, her company. This was the very first movie that they were producing, so she insisted on wanting James Garner, and she said that the kiss that she has with James Garner was the best kiss she ever had on screen in her life. And one thing I noticed, and one thing I kind of made it hard for me to figure out where this was initially, was because the pillars here used to be brick pillars that have been changed. They were like big square bricks, and now they've changed them over to these. But this in the movie is Mary Lou's. You can see when they're sitting across the street at a different point in the movie, the name of the restaurant or the name of the bar above Mary Lou's. So this is Eunice City Hall in the movie, but it's actually the post office, and this is where they run into each other again because Murphy is paying a bunch of parking tickets. Where he's parked the Studebaker, they have a meter there that he refuses to pay because he keeps his car parked there all day long and the meter is new. So he's in there saying, "I'm gonna keep paying this until they get rid of that meter." He goes, "I'll be willing to replace it with a nice beautiful tree." But the guy inside says, "Murphy, they're not gonna do it, just give up. You can't beat City Hall." They come walking out of here, he and Emma, and you see this in the background, and she says, "Don't you know you can't fight City Hall?" And he says, "When they push, I shove." She goes, "What are you, the town oddball?" So at the time, that stop sign wasn't there. It's a 25-mile-per-hour sign. So then our next shot goes back 2 blocks over to across from Murphy's Drugstore, a different angle we haven't seen yet. We see them crossing the street. So even though they're using a different lens, our next shot is right here. Sally Field is standing right about here, and we see Murphy right where this opening to the parking lot is. He starts walking across here towards Murphy Drugs over here. And guess what happens next? The city has pulled out the meter and they're putting in the tree right here, just like Murphy wanted. So now he's got this beautiful tree. This was the movie tree. They planted that right there for the movie and everything, and he has his car parked out in front of it. And then it's funny because I mentioned that right over here, that building wasn't there, there was an open space. A dog comes walking around the corner and lifts his leg and pees on it right here. And at the time, this was all grass. They didn't have that metal or anything there yet, but that's what he says in the movie when he's paying the meter fee. He says, "I'll plant a nice tree there so random dogs can come and urinate upon it." So he wins. So Sally Field at one point basically is so broke that she asks him for a loan, and he tells her no because he basically says, "I'm already helping like 7 other people in town who have their benefits or whatever cut, so he ends up buying a horse and having it boarded at her house and pays her to train it. They end up becoming great friends because he goes out and rides it every day and ends up having a lot of meals out there. So they end up becoming great friends, and one night they come to the movies back over here where I showed you, back over at the Spur Theater. So they're back over here at the Spur Theater inside watching a horror movie, and Sally Field, aka Emma Moriarty, her scumbag of an ex-husband, has shown back up because he has nowhere else to go, forces his way in their life and starts living there again. So all four of them, Corey Haim, Sally Field, her ex-husband, and James Garner, are all here watching the movie, and it's a horror movie and James Garner hates it. So once it gets a little too gory, he even says he hasn't been to a movie since the Duke died before they come. So they're inside, he hates the movie, and he comes walking out of the movie and sits at a bench that was located right here. There used to be parking meters all up and down this in the movie, but he's sitting right here, and then Corey Haim gets disgusted with the movie. He comes walking out, and they sit down right here and start talking. And our shot is actually more of kind of from this angle, because as they're talking, James Garner's telling him what a great view of the sky that he has tonight and everything. And then we see Sally Field walk out of the movie as well. She's disgusted by it. The only one left is the ex-husband. He's loving the movie. So they're all sitting out here talking and, you know, just talking about how much they hated the movie. And all of a sudden Sally Field looks over catty corner to the street and sees a building, sees people going in, and says, "What's that?" Now what she sees is that building that at the time had a big giant elk on top of it, and that was the Elks in the movie. And Murphy says, "Oh, Thursday night bingo." So Sally Field gets this all excited look on her face, and she goes, "Bingo? I want to go play bingo." So all three of them go inside there and they start playing bingo, and she wins the big jackpot of the night, $200. Then after they win the money and they're walking back over here, the movie's letting out, and her husband comes out here and she says, "Oh, I just won $200 over at bingo. It'll make up for the money that you took out of my purse." Because you see in the movie, there's a point where he literally, while she's sleeping, goes into her purse and steals money and then takes him and the son shopping for hats. So we see this in the movie as well. Very briefly, there's 2 points in the movie where Corey Haim comes in here. This was the grocery store. He asks if they're looking for a box boy, and they say they already have one. But then later on, when Sally Field's kind of down and out, she comes walking out of here with a bag of groceries, because this was obviously the grocery store. Here from a wider shot, you can see they just used this little section right here for the movie as the supermarket, but above you can see where the fading of the old sign says Florence Market. So as you might imagine, Sally Field's scumbag husband in this movie wants her back, and she actually, even though she's half his age, she is in love with Murphy and makes comments throughout the movie. "I think you should get married again, Murphy." So finally, she comes home one day and walks in, and this gentleman, ex-husband of hers, is surprised by a woman from Tulsa showing up saying that the 2 babies she has are his. And so now that he's leaving with her, Sally Field comes back to the drugstore to tell Murphy and to ask Murphy, "What do I do now? Tell me what to do, Murphy." So right back inside Murphy's Drugs, he's behind the counter, and she's walking up and sits down at the counter and tells him what happened. He says, "I know what happened. He just came in here and bought some diapers on the way out of town." And she starts lamenting, "What do I do, Murphy?" And he says, "If you need help, go to a doctor. If you need advice, go to a shrink. You're a big girl, figure it out." And he grabs her and plants a big kiss on her. Just leaves her dumbfounded. So the last shot we see over here at Murphy's is him literally pushing her outside the door, pulling the door closed behind him, and him flipping the open sign to closed. So our movie ends up out at the ranch, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends. I told you a little bit about how it ends, but if you want to see the rest, go watch Murphy's Romance. Now I want to go see if I can find this general store, because they apparently have the counter from the movie in there, and I'm hoping maybe through the window, even if it's closed, we can see it. So let's try. Came into the hardware store and look at what they have up there. Movie poster. Okay, so I walked up and down and could not find a general store. So as you saw, I went into the hardware store, that's the only place open, to ask if they knew anything, and someone there did. He said the general store burnt down. 4 or 5 years ago. He said that they were using the counter. The guy said, in fact, I just had lunch there a couple of days before, and he said, yeah, the whole general store burned down with the counter from the movie in there with it. So unfortunately, we won't get to see that. All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a day. I wanna thank Susan O'Hanlon, Kristen Demarest, and Joe Soldezza for becoming my newest Patreons. And if you've never seen Murphy's Romance, go watch it. Have a great night, and goodbye.